and welcome to episode 27 of the Tea and Possibilities podcast. I'm Nikki, and this is a podcast all about knitting, crochet, and making all the things here in northwest London. You can find me at hippie_Nikki on Twitter and Instagram. I'm Nikki Hippie on Ravelry, and if you search for Tea and Possibilities under the groups tab, you will find our group right there. As always, all of the show notes will be on my blog, and the links to everything I have just mentioned will be just down below. There is no tea today. I am on the water. I was very unlucky yesterday and I had a beautiful brunch with a friend of mine. That was not the unlucky element. Unluckily, on my way back to get changed to go out for a picnic, because I had worn far too many layers expecting it to be one of the cooler days, and it really wasn't, I ended up with a migraine. So I pretty much spent all of yesterday afternoon in bed. I felt a bit better in the evening, but today I still feel, I think hungover is the word I always use. I just feel a little bit out of sorts, and I find that keeping hydrated really helps. So I'm just drinking water like it's going out of fashion at the moment. Before we dive into all the good stuff for the podcast this week, I just wanted to talk about the fact that there wasn't a podcast last week. For those of you who don't know, I do podcast every weekend. It goes up early in the following week. But last week, unfortunately, there was yet more bad news here in the UK. I had a beautiful day on Saturday. Rich and I had a picnic on the heath. I worked on my hat. It was absolutely lovely. We came back a little bit pink and sunburned to watch a film together. And then I heard my nan listening to the radio. And unfortunately, there was another terror attack, this time on London Bridge and in Borough Market. And on the Sunday, when I had been planning to film, I was still waiting to hear back from various friends who had been out. So unfortunately, I just didn't feel that I was in the correct headspace to film, to do a happy, cheerful podcast. All of my friends did get in touch. They are all fine. But I still felt very, very low. As I'd said the week before, it's a horrible feeling to know that there are these things going on in the world and there is nothing that you can do about it. You and I, we can't go out there and stop these things happening. The only thing that we can do is try and spread a little love and a little happiness, and to reach out to other people and try and bring more love into the world and not more hate. My thoughts are very much, again, with the people who were affected by last week's attack. As you can no doubt tell, I am very, very down about it. It has been generally quite an anxious week for me. I have not done much crafting this week because of the bad news. There's also been a general election, which is usually quite a stressful time. And generally I've just felt very much like I want to go and live in a little cave. So I am really, really happy to be here with you guys today. Thank you so much for coming back every week. Thank you to any new viewers. I really appreciate you giving the podcast a shot. And I'm just really happy to be taking this time after a very low, stressful, anxious week. I'm just happy to be here talking to you about things that I love, things that make me happy, things that I know you love too, because we're all here for the love of yarn. While we're on the subject of trying to spread a little bit more love and joy in the world, I just want to let you know that at some point this week, I will be opening up a thread on the Ravelry page, Ravelry forum even, to remind you about pen pals. I started pairing people up for pen pals at the beginning of the year as part of the Best Year Ever Cal. If that was something you thought would bring some sunshine into your year, I wanted you to sign up. Obviously there have been people who have joined us since, or who didn't sign up at the time, who may have wanted to later. So I've been opening up these sign-ups quarterly. So please, if you do want to have a pen pal, pop me a Ravelry message with your real name, your address, and whether or not you are happy to post abroad. I can't guarantee that you will be paired up with somebody in your country or outside your country, depending on your preference, because it all depends on who signs up, as I'm sure you can understand. But before I pair you up, if you're not able to get someone abroad or in your country, whatever your request was, I will let you know so that you can choose whether or not to participate. And one last thing before we move on to Whipped Up. I have had a couple of people tell me that they have sent me messages on Instagram, private messages, that I have not received. I have received a few Instagram direct messages, but I know for a fact there are a few that just haven't arrived in my inbox. So I would request, if you did want to get in touch with me, please do message me on Ravelry. As far as I know, none of my Ravelry messages are going awry, and I really don't want you to send me a private message and think that I'm just ignoring it. There's also a thing on Instagram where you have to accept, and I know that I have on one occasion hit decline instead of accept because I was having a bit of a dopey moment. So please do message me on Ravelry if you want to get in contact, because that, as far as I know, is the most reliable way of getting in touch with me. I just don't want you sending me a private message on Instagram when there's clearly something weird going on there and it's not quite working. Well, that's all the administration-y bits and bobs done for this week, so let's move on to Whipped Up. I am kicking off this week's Whipped Up with a faux. This is my gratitude hat, and yes, I did try and hide the fact that I haven't woven in the ends yet, but it just kind of slithered out and shamed me. But this is the Tied Knots pattern. It's a free pattern by Justyna Lokowska. I knit it in Madeleine Tosh DK in the Earl Grey colourway, which I have now discovered is discontinued. I'm really annoyed about this because I thought this would make such a beautiful jumper or cardigan. Look at that colour. It's just such a perfect neutral, but also so much interest in there with the rust and the blues and the greys, and it's just, oh, I love this. Please bring it back, Madeleine Tosh, why? But yes, this hat is for our friend who I won't mention because she might be watching, although she'll work out who it is. I don't think she watches. Anyway, this is for our friend Lottie, who is going abroad and gave us first refusal on her flat before she went away, which has just made our lives so much more straightforward, as anyone who has tried to find a flat anywhere, least of all in London, will understand. So I thought I would send her off with a little gift, just so that she understands how grateful we are and that we will miss her, and we hope that she, you know, does really well wherever she ends up. So yeah, this I love. I'm still in love with this German twisted cast. I mean, look at the stretch. It's just amazing. And even though I haven't woven in the ends, and even though it's just going to leave me with horrendous hat hair, I'm going to do this for you guys. I'm going to risk it. I also don't have a front-facing camera, so if this looks ridiculous, it's not the pattern, it's because I can't see what I'm doing. But as you can see, this has stretched beautifully. This cast on is amazing. I'm sure the cables look good. I don't know, I haven't blocked it. So there you go, it's kind of got a little beanie finish at the back. There we go. See, I need a mirror as part of my podcasting setup, really, don't I? But yeah, I love it. I think it's beautiful. I would knit this again in a heartbeat. It's a really straightforward pattern. It's really, I don't want to say intuitive because I did have to flick back to the cable instructions, but that's probably because I was doing a lot of it while I was watching something else, which just backs up the fact that it's a really straightforward knit. I'm going to take this off now, and I really apologise for what I may look like for the rest of this podcast. Hopefully that's not too bad. I mean, like I say, I don't have a front-facing camera or a mirror to hand, so apologies if I look like a scarecrow, but I did that for you. I took that for the team. I do have some leftovers. I will probably try and get that into my Cozy Memories blanket. That's mostly fingering weight, but I think it'll be fine just to have a little DK weight square, and it's not super heavy or anything. But this, I was hoping to have enough left over that I would be able to make the alfalfa hat by Kate Gavin Osborne for my friend's little one. Unfortunately, I don't think I have enough. I am going to weigh it just to see, but I'm looking at it, I don't think I'm going to have enough. But this hat has started me off on a bit of a hat kick. So I've got some more hat yarn on its way. No doubt there'll be some left from each of those, and I'll be able to do something cute and stripy. So my hat plans are, I've got 3, that's 4. I want to make 4 hats in total, 1 down, 3 to go. The first one I want to make is the beeswax hat. This is by Amy van der Laar, and I want to knit it in a nice tonal pink. It's on its way. I did a little bit of an order for Madeleine Tosh. Again, I love Madeleine Tosh. It's really simple. There's always going to be an amazing colour, and I knew exactly what I wanted and it was there. It hasn't arrived yet, so I can't show it to you, and I can't remember the colourway name, but I think it was Begonia. But it's a really beautiful pink, and this hat is stunning. It's got the the hexagons of beeswax, and they're kind of placed in a really kind of off-centre kind of, it's just stunning. I will link to it in the show notes so that you can see it. I can't wait to cast this on. Next up is another Madeleine Tosh. Again, it's on its way with the pink. I bought them together in a moment of just desperate need for yarn, and I will be knitting the Graham hat. This will be my second Graham hat. It's a really simple broken rib hat that I knit for Rich a couple of years ago. It's really enjoyable, easy to take around with you knit, and I'll be doing that one in grey. The last one I want to knit is also by Justina Lakowska, and it's called the Fugo hat. Fugo. I'm not very good at the whole pronunciation thing, so I will link it in the show notes. You will be able to see it, and I think I'm going to do that in a mustardy yellow. This was actually something I added to my queue this weekend, so I haven't ordered that yarn yet. I had a bit of a moment and ordered the pink and the grey without checking what size needles I needed, so I don't know if I need different needles. So I will check that before ordering my yellow yarn, because then I can get it to all come in one big go. But hats. None of these hats are for me. I love a hat. I've got a little grey beret that I wear constantly. I was going to wear it today because my hair feels a bit fluffy, but I thought, you can't wear a hat in your podcast because, I don't know, I could. I have a grey hat that I absolutely love. I wear constantly. I've knit 2 for Rich, and I really enjoy knitting hats. And making Lottie's hat made me think, this is going to make her, really happy that she's been given a gift that I've hand knit for her. And maybe I could do more of that. I've been thinking a lot, as I said, about ways in which I can help. I can put something out into the world to combat the bad stuff. And it sounds silly, but it made me think maybe I should knit more hats. So every single hat is going to be a gift. I am not going to say who they're for because I think a couple of them watch the podcast, but they are mostly going to be just because gifts for people that I really love, that I care about, that I know will appreciate being given something knitted. And it may sound silly, but I just feel that I have felt so down and so anxious about what is going on in the world at the moment that this feels like a practical thing that I can do to help, to brighten somebody else's day. So that person that I give a hat to and they're having a bad day, or it's really grey out and cold, they'll put that hat on and they'll remember that I knit it for them, and it might make them feel just a little bit happier. And I think that is worthwhile, and it's going to make me feel good to spread that love, and hopefully it will make them feel good to receive it. One thing I will say about working on my tied knots hat is the needles that I was working on. I decided to have a go with some Addies, and I loved the cable, I loved how slick they were, but they were super blunt. I think they were the only ones that the online shop I used had available, but I will have a look to see if I can get them with pointier lace tips, because I think that's why it took me so long, because I would zip around doing the knits and pearls, but when it came to doing the cables and the knit two togethers and things like that, it was just, because the tip was so blunt, it was just so hard to do them quickly and efficiently. So I definitely think that I would like to use Addies for my hats going forward, but for something like the beeswax hat or the Fugo hat, I definitely want to use a lace tip. So I'll be looking for some lace tipped short circulars for hat knitting in the future. In the spirit of making things for other people to make them happy, my Shanghai stripes. I am almost finished with the third repeat. I say almost, I'm about halfway through it. I've got, that's the wrong end. Hang on, let's find the other end. I was trying to hide this end because it's fringed. I haven't woven in a single end because I hate doing it, and I'll do it all at the end. I'd love to say, oh, I'm going to go back and do them, you know, once I finish a repeat. I'm not going to. That would be a lie. So I'm just going to ignore these, and it's a problem for future Nikki. Sorry, future Nikki. But I've started, I've gone on the third repeat up to the dark red, and I'm now going back down to the yellow again. This is definitely not going to get finished before she leaves. I don't know when it's going to get to her. I'm not going to put myself under too much pressure because we are planning to post it anyway with some treats. Just as long as she gets it sort of before Christmas, I think would be nice, because some lovely viewers told me that it does get cold in Shanghai, so she will need this. So as long as she has it in time, you know, to use it as what it is, which is a hug from a friend. That's the most important thing. And yeah, I'm really enjoying making this, apart from when it's absolutely boiling and then I've just got it laid across me and it's doing its job, I can't complain, but it's really hot. I would like to, by the end of the month, be halfway finished, so have the fourth repeat done, and then I could be kind of on the home straight for July before she leaves. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to sending this to her, and I really do hope that she loves it. This is getting so big now, it doesn't even have a project bag anymore. It just lives beside my bed, and I pick it up and I work on it. And to be honest, I actually worked on this quite a bit yesterday when I came round from my headache. When I have a migraine, I tend to have to just lay and I kind of, I guess, sleep, although it's not particularly restful. But then later in the day, when I just felt vaguely headachy, I just went back and forth on this to make myself feel a bit better, and it was really lovely. I think I might have to make myself a granny stripe. I love these colours still, I think they're beautiful, but in all honesty, if this was, you know, sea greens and blues with some greys and some burgundies in and some like golds, like all those near the sea tones, burgundy near the sea, you know, like that seaweed rusty colour, that kind of shade. If this was in those colours, she wouldn't be getting it. It would be mine. I would keep it. While I love these colours, they're not really my colours. So it's going to be a lot easier to give it away because they're her colours. My only selfish whip at the moment is my Find Your Fade. And I promised that I would be on the second colour by now. And I know you're all stunned. I can sense how stunned you are that I'm not. It's still purple! It's ridiculous. It's a colour fade shawl and all I've done is talk about colour number one, which is purple. So Buck the trend, Nikki, buck the trend. But yeah, I'm almost finished with this lace section. I think I've got 2 more repeats to do of it, so I'm about the third of the way through. It's not really almost finished, is it? But yeah, I am working on this. I decided not to pressure myself with this. That's a general theme at the moment. Feeling as meh as I did this week and not wanting to work too much on anything, I don't need the pressure. You know, the things that I want to make, there are no real deadlines. Things can be gifted as and when they are ready. So when I want to work on this, I'm going to, but I'm not going to force myself to, because, you know, I've got my blanket that I really want to get a good chunk done. I've got a couple of hats to be casting on as soon as they arrive in the post. The yarn, that is, not the hat. And I definitely want to finish my hortensia, which I put down when it got hot, because that was a really solid, heavy lump of wool in my lap that was just too much for me. So my fade is not on a back burner, but is very much, you know, further down the list of priorities. But it's getting there. Slowly but surely, we will find my house. One thing that I haven't mentioned, bad podcaster that I am, whenever I mention my Find Your Fade, is that if you are working on a Harry Potter inspired shawl, there is a hashtag. It's the Harry Potter Shawl Along. I mention this because the lovely Caitlin of the Wall Jewel podcast, which I made sound like a tongue twister and it really isn't, is working on a Find Your Horcrux shawl. So it's like the complete antithesis, I'll put my teeth back in, of a Find Your House shawl. So I'm really excited to see how hers knits up. So if you do want to have a look at our progress, please use the Harry Potter Shawl Along hashtag. Please share yours on that hashtag as well. I would love to see them. Finally, before we move on to Knit and Natter, I would love to share with you a new prize for the Best Year Ever Cow. Again, just to remind everyone, the Best Year Ever Cow is a year-long knit-along. It started on the 1st of January this year and it will run to the 31st of December 2017. I will be pulling prizes in early January. And basically the aim is to knit a minimum of 4 things that bring you joy. They don't necessarily have to be made for you. For example, making these hats is going to bring me so much joy, they would definitely qualify. And this week I had some very happy posts indeed from Naomi of Cozy Cute Knits. She was kind enough to send not only a prize for the podcast, but also something for me as well. So let me show you. She sent 2 really beautiful project bags and said that I was free to keep one, which was incredibly generous of her. Thank you so much, Naomi. I decided to keep this one. I love this one. It just reminds me, for some reason, I think it's the colours, I think it's the geometric shapes, but it just reminds me of like Saved by the Bell, kind of 90s nostalgia. I absolutely love it. And it's got this beautiful lime green lining and this lovely, lovely blue ribbon handle. And she also included some really beautiful stitch markers. So this is my little set. These are tiny, tiny keys with a little heart, and they are just lovely. They are so dainty, so pretty. They come on this tiny little wire so you can keep them all together, and they're just lovely. And they remind me of the key challenge in Philosopher's Stone, because everything always comes back to Harry Potter for me. But she didn't leave you out. She included this. I love this. This is ridiculous. Look at these mad pandas. There's one doing a little dance, there's one with sunglasses, one with earphones, and they just make me laugh. I think they're hilarious. This is a slightly bigger bag. It's got a lovely grey lining and a beautiful bright pink handle. And the stitch markers included with this are some lovely little butterflies. And again, they're all kept on a little wire so they don't get lost. And it's all just finished really, really beautifully, and I can't wait to give this as a prize for the Best Year Ever cowl. I am sure that whenever you pull out that project bag to use, if you're having a bad day, you're going to see these too cool for school pandas and you're going to be massively cheered up. So a massive thank you again to Naomi, that was really, really generous of you. They will be going in the prize draw. I say prize draw, I don't actually have a prize draw. We're still living out of boxes at the moment till we move. So I've kind of just got my little pile of prizes, and I'm going to make sure there's a little prize box when we move so I can keep everything in there, and it's just going to be this place of just happiness, ready to choose things, find a person and send them out, and hopefully put a big smile on somebody's face at the end of the year. So I'm really sorry for the lack of progress. I didn't podcast last week, so that is 2 weeks worth of stuff. And there's not much. But if you're anything like me, you can really lose your mojo when you're feeling a bit down. And that is a very, very rare thing for me. Usually that is where I turn to my knitting, my crochet, my making. But I just found it, particularly the last week with the election, so hard to look away from the news, from, internet updates and all of that, that I just couldn't focus. I just didn't have the concentration even to go back and forth on a crochet blanket. So I'm really sorry about that, but I have had a fairly knit heavy weekend, shall we say, in between migraine pain, and I do feel that now that the general election is over, things are starting to calm down and feel much more relaxed hereabouts, so I will be doing a lot more crafting over the next few days, I'm sure. But now let's move on to knit and netter. After my last podcast, I was very honest in that podcast about how I felt about the Manchester attack in particular, but about the world in general. It's not something that I regularly bring up on the podcast because this is a knitting podcast, and I am fully aware that you do not come here for me to talk politics at you. So while I understand that, I do think that when these things happen, particularly when they happen on my doorstep, that I do have to acknowledge them. I always want you to know that if you have been in any way affected, I'm not glossing over it at all. I want to acknowledge it and express my condolences. But at the same time, the more this stuff happens, the more I want to do something. And as I said earlier in the podcast, you and I are very unlikely to be in a position to do something. For those of you who watch who are working for charities or for government teams who are out there helping refugees, people in need, you are amazing. You do fantastic work. But I think that people who don't work in those industries can also help. And I received some really amazing comments, messages, private messages from people recommending or suggesting ways in which we as knitters can make a difference. So this week I really wanted to share those with you. If I can come up with a way for the Tea and Possibilities podcast or the podcast, knitting podcast community in general to help, I will absolutely do that. It is something that's kind of bubbling away in the back of my head, and it's something that I would love to do, but I'm kind of trying to figure out what is the best way to do that. So if you have any suggestions for that, please let me know. As I say, it is something I'm thinking about for the future. But in the meantime, there are so many other ways you can help, and I just wanted to share them with you today. First up, you can do something in your local community or within your family. I believe that change can happen from the smallest ripple. So whether that is telling somebody that you walk past on your way to work that they look great, they've got a great dress on, you've put a smile on that person's face. Buying the person behind you in the queue's coffee for that day. Think little things like this can really encourage others to pay it forward, and I think that is a really, really powerful thing. For me, I'm looking to make hats so that the people close to me know that they are loved, and it feels for me a really good thing to be doing right now. I love knitting for myself. I am an incredibly selfish knitter, but in the face of what is happening in the world at the moment, I want to make sure that the people around me, the people I care most about, know how much I care. And for me, knitting is how I'm going to do that. So maybe that is something that you can do as well. But there are charities that use knitting as a way to change the world, and these are absolutely amazing organisations. The first one is called Knit a Square, and it is as simple as that. You can knit or crochet a square and send it off to this amazing charity, and they will put together blankets for children who are vulnerable, children who have been orphaned, children who need care, who need to feel loved. This is a theme across all of the charities that I found that were suggested to me, that your knitting not only has the practical physical benefit of keeping somebody warm when they might otherwise be cold, but it also makes them feel loved. It is something that you have made yourself to give to them, and that I think is an incredibly powerful thing to do, and that is absolutely something that I will be doing in the very near future. Next up is Knit Aid. Knit Aid was set up to help the refugee crisis that has been fed by Syria and its current conflict. And they started off by sending jumpers and hats to refugees in Calais. And this is now growing to help refugees across the world, and it continues to grow now. It is an amazing thing that they are offering. You send them your knitted items. They do recommend on their website things that they particularly need more of, and they will make sure that the people who need them most receive them. Knit Aid run workshops, they sell kits, patterns, all of these things to raise money to help the people who need it. Knit for Peace works along similar lines. Send them anything you have and they will make sure it finds a home where it is most needed. You can send them hats, you can send them jumpers, you can send them scarves, and they will find a home for it. They run knitting retreats as well. They do fantastic work. You could also follow in the footsteps of Cece of the Geeky Girls Knit podcast, who knits a preemie hat every week. She then gathers these 52 preemie hats and donates them, I think, to her local hospital. I know I'd read recently about making little crochet octopus for little premature babies as well. I think they find it quite comforting to have something that they can grab onto. There are so many ways that you can help. I will put a link to all of these charities in the show notes. Perhaps we could also start a thread on the Ravelry forum to talk about ways in which we can help. So if, for example, you know that your local hospital really needs some preemie hats, you could put an alert into the group on that thread, and then anyone who lives near you could join you in helping them out. I think that might be a really neat way of doing things, a little bit like a bat signal. So if you know of anywhere that needs particular help, you can let us know there and we can try and get the word out like that. Now, I am fully aware that knitting time is precious. We don't all have as much time as we would like to knit. And, you know, I knit for myself. I'm an incredibly selfish knitter. However, I do think that for me, it is becoming more important over the last few weeks and months to be doing something alongside the stuff I do for myself, for my own happiness. for my own mental health, which is important. It is important to care for yourself. But for me, I really want to be doing something else. I want to be gathering a box of goodies that I can send off and know that they are going to help somebody. If you do not have time to do that, that is absolutely fine. That is not a terrible thing. No one is saying that if you're not knitting for charity, you are a bad knitter. I think that you should do what is right for you. For the longest time, knitting for myself has been my joy. At the moment, I want to knit for the people that I love. I want to knit for charities in the future. That is absolutely fine. Please, please, please don't think that I'm trying to say that if you're not knitting for charity, that's really selfish, because it's not. You should do what makes you happy, and there are infinite number of ways that we can help change the world around us for the better. I will be starting a thread in the Ravelry group because I think this is a great conversation to be having, because there are ways other than your knitting that you can help. Do you know a great charity that you want to let other people know about so that they can help support it? Do you know ways that you use every day to make other people's lives better, even if it's just buying that cup of coffee, as I said earlier, for somebody behind you, even if it's stopping to ask if someone's okay? There are so many ways that we can have a positive, joyful, loving impact on the world around us. But that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed the episode. There will hopefully be more knitting in next week's. I'm really hoping that my yarn turns up, because I'm itching to cast on a couple new hats. I think I might start with the graham just because it's nice and autopilot-y, and that's great because it means I can take it on picnics. But thank you so much for spending some time with me. I hope I will see you next week. Have an amazing week. Take care, and I'll see you next week for an actual cup of tea. Take care. Bye.
Don't forget crochet in your intro.
Okay.
Knitting and crocheting and little crafty things. Remember, it's a knitting podcast.
I'm gonna put that as a blooper.